is this? Am I in a box? I thought I was at the DevOps Days DC. Wait. Oh, yeah. I guess I'm not in a dream. Man, the last year and a half are coming back to me now. Oh, wow. Geez. Well, I am so happy to be back with our DevOps Day DC community, virtual or not. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Holly Bazemore, and I'm currently working in security at Amazon Web Services. And I am thrilled to be back to co-host DevOps Days DC this year.
And I'm Jeff Gallimore, Holly's co-chair for this year's DevOps Days DC event. When I'm not working with Holly and the other organizers to support this amazing community, I have a gig as the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer and a co-founder at Excella, a technology firm based in Arlington, Virginia. Back in the spring, when we were thinking about this year's event, we knew we wanted to create something special because this community deserves it after missing last year. We wanted to give you talks that represented the diversity of the work being done in this community and the diversity of the people doing that work. We wanted to provide the opportunity to hear new voices, people and perspectives we might not have heard before. We wanted to highlight some of the exceptional stories that have happened in this exceptional time. And we wanted to be true to the spirit of what DevOps Days is all about and create an opportunity for this community to get together, to connect, share, and learn. We're excited about what we've created, and we hope you feel the same way by the end of the day.
So what do we need to get started? Computer? Check. Network connectivity? Check. Browser? Check. I guess this year we don't have to tell you where the bathrooms are. So we are so excited to share some exceptional programming with you today. Have you ever wondered how to make time for innovation and improvements? How do you decide what to automate out of all the things that need to be automated? How have public and private sectors survived and even thrived during COVID? Everything that COVID threw at us the last 2 years. What can I do to make on-call sustainable, especially with everyone being remote? Our fantastic speakers will give you examples on what they have done to help address challenges like these. And that's just the morning session. You will hear from some speakers new to our community, like Claire Labrie and Ori Karen, or some speakers that are joining us again, like Camille Clayton and Bajo Obiami, and industry experts like John Alspa and Dr. Laura McGuire. Half of our speakers this year have never even been to a DevOps Day event, so let's make sure to give them all a huge welcome. In order to make the content today more consumable, we've scheduled some longish breaks in the morning, midday, and in the afternoon. Check out the schedule to see more details.
Now, in addition to orienting you to the program, we also want to orient you to the platform we're all using to engage in the program, and that's Hopin. So let's take a little time for me to show you around. The sidebar is your primary method of navigating around the event. Reception is the home base for the event. It has information about the event, our sponsors, and especially important is the schedule for the day. Just scroll down the page to see the complete schedule. The main stage is where the action will be most of the time, like during all the talks. If during the talks you're seeing fuzzy video, you can adjust the video quality through the settings at the bottom of the video player. And when the talks are happening, you can chat with the speakers and other attendees using the event chat. We'll have open spaces using sessions. We'll cover open spaces after the lunch break. And if you'd like to connect with other attendees one-on-one for a 3-minute conversation, check out the networking. Visit our amazing sponsors in the expo. You can direct message other attendees and the organizers. And you can see all the amazing people who are at the event. I'm sure you'll see some people you know, and hopefully some people you'll know better by the end of the event. We'd really appreciate it if everyone would edit their Hopin profile to include more information about yourself. Name, image, organization, title, pronouns, whatever you feel comfortable sharing with this community to help us learn a little more about you. It will improve your experience and the experience of everyone else by making things just a little more human.
Now, let's talk about engaging with speakers. This is the opportunity you have to ask the amazing speakers some questions. And because we're virtual this year, we get to do something a little bit different. In a physical event, when we're together in person, the speakers on stage are, well, speaking. In our case, the speakers will be available in the chat during their scheduled presentation time, so you can post your questions there for them to answer. If you have thoughts on a question someone else asked, please contribute.
And even though this is a virtual event, we still have ways for us to interact with each other too. One of the signature elements of a DevOps Days event is open spaces. We mentioned that earlier. We'll have open spaces this afternoon, and we'll share how those will work when we come back from the break this afternoon. We'll also have the event chat to engage with speakers and other attendees, and try out the networking to be connected with other attendees one-on-one on video, or use a good old-fashioned DM to reach out to someone to start a conversation. And because we're all part of the same community, we should treat each other well, regardless of whether we're in person or virtual. We want everyone to have an amazing time here at the DevOps Days DC, and our code of conduct reflects that. Now, we posted the code of conduct on the DevOps Days DC website and in Hopin, but let me give you the gist. Listen well when someone else is sharing. Share well when you have something to say. Respect everyone at all times. And speak up if you see something or hear something that isn't consistent with the environment we want for this community. If you have any issues, email washingtondc@devopsdays.org or direct message me, Jeff Gallimore, or Holly Basemore in Hopin. Now, I'd like to enlist all of your support in creating the kind of harassment-free environment we want for this community. We've just posted the code of conduct in the Hopin chat, so I'm going to give you a few seconds to go into the chat, find that code of conduct post, and just please give it a like to indicate your support. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much.
For those of you who bought the VIP ticket, not only will you be contributing to some worthy causes and the organizations that support them, but you'll also receive an exclusive DevOps Days DC 2021 sticker in the mail for your laptop, water bottle, car bumper, private jet, whatever you put stickers on these days. And you can still buy a VIP ticket to make a donation and get the sticker. You can select one of 6 different organizations to receive your donation or spread it equally among them. This year, we are donating to the Black Code Collective, Women Who Code, Sisterhood of Native American Coders, Latinas in Tech, All Star Code, and Smile.
And now for the unveiling of the sticker design. All right, with that sticker prominently displayed on whatever item you decide to attach it to, you will be the envy of your colleagues.
I love the sticker. DevOps Days DC would not be able to put together programming like we have today and in prior years without our fantastic sponsors. This year's conference is happening thanks to our generous sponsors. This year, our platinum sponsors are Excella, Solve for Today, Evolve for Tomorrow. From incremental advances to leaps of innovation, they make your tech work for you. Aviatrix specializes in multi-cloud native networking and network security. And Chef provides automation software for continuous delivery of secure applications and infrastructure.
And you'll get to see some 1-minute video pitches from our platinum sponsors. It's a next best thing to calling them up on stage when we're in person.
Our gold sponsors this year are Cloudsmith. They specialize in software chain supply management. in software supply chain management in the cloud. Launched Darkly, they help federal customers innovate faster, deploy fearlessly, and make each release a masterpiece through feature management. Pluribus Digital, they build modern digital products for public service missions and engage with the communities that support them. Fearless and Hutch, they are a full stack digital service firm in Baltimore that delivers sleek, modern, and user-friendly software designed to push the boundaries of possibility. And last but not least, our silver sponsor this year is Homelight. HomeLight empowers people to achieve better outcomes when they are buying or selling their home.
You should see an expo icon on the left side of your screen at the bottom. Our sponsors have set up booths where you can learn more about what they do and engage with them. You can also find the links to their website on our DevOps Days DC website and from our Twitter feed.
And by visiting the sponsors, we may get even more than learning by playing the sponsor passport game. Visit all the sponsor booths, get the answer to the question posted in each booth, and enter the correct answers, and you may win a valuable prize. Your choice of an O'Reilly individual subscription for 1 year, an unlimited access to Coursera for a year, a drone, an Apple iPad mini, or a $500 Visa gift card. The link to submit your answers is in the reception area for the event. Submit your form by 7 p.m. today. Wait a minute. Hey, Jeff, are you sure organizers can't participate? I would love a free year of Coursera.
Sorry, Holly. As awesome as that would be, we are not eligible to win. That is only for attendees. If you need help during the event, post in the chat for the event, send an email to Washington, D.C. at devopsdays.org, or if all else fails, you can direct message me or Holly. Okay, that's it. Let's get rolling with this year's first speaker.
Hi folks, thanks for joining this session. What I'm going to be presenting is a set of techniques that you can work through with your team to get an improved sense of clarity and priority on what is really going to move the needle and what's really going to make a difference across your organization. And this can be applied to any target outcome, and I'm going to show you how. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I've been in tech for about 21 years, working through a variety of different positions and roles in software development and IT, all dedicated towards improving the flow of value to customers. And it wasn't always this way, but over time, I've started to realize that flow is a massive factor in getting what we want and sustainably getting what we want. And so flow engineering is really the product of all that experience and failure along the way. So for this presentation, I'm going to frame it in a little bit of a story. This is Sharon. She's going to be playing my boss in this scenario. And I'm going to be a software delivery manager or a VP engineering in the organization, aiming to improve performance. So we're going to be talking about clarity as a way of understanding where we are and where we're headed, value, how to get the most out of our efforts, and flow, how do we sustainably achieve results, and how do we scale them as well. So we're also going to be talking about mapping out what's inside our heads so that we can share that information with other people and get a better understanding together of where to go, what to do, what's most important. And then we're going to look at ways of bridging gaps between business and tech and leaders and peers and contributors, getting everybody on the same page. And then ultimately creating win-win-win scenarios. So I like scenarios where everybody wins. Flow engineering is set up to facilitate that. And that's what it's all about. So framing this scenario, we have a challenge, probably similar to a lot of organizations. Huge backlog of issues, and we need to go faster. We can't just keep chipping away at the backlog. We've got to accelerate. And so what's going to hold us back from that? A lot of these efforts, a lot of what we're trying to do is failing because we lack an understanding of where we are, where we're headed, and what's in between us and where we're going. And it really is a major factor that affects our ability to achieve flow and improve the performance of our delivery. We run into problems like different perspectives across the organization, even across our team. We have a lack of simple models that allow us to kind of reconcile that challenge, to have really high quality discussions that stick, that actually serve to move us forward and answer questions that we have, generate ideas, prioritize all the things that we could be doing and focus that to what's actually going to make the most difference. And we all know this by now. You can't copy another organization. You can't even copy your last success. You have to be generating solutions. You have to be generating ideas, solving problems according to your unique context. So how do we do that? And that's really where mapping comes in. Mapping, especially collaborative mapping, bringing people together to create maps, is highly engaging. It allows people to contribute who wouldn't normally have a voice at a conference table or on a Zoom meeting. It's inviting people to collaborate. And by building a map, we're sharing not only context, we're sharing ownership. So we're creating something together. That means it's more meaningful. And that's bringing us together. It's aligning different perspectives. It's bypassing some of our separate incentives to go work off on our own and then, bump up against people. We're bringing people together to solve problems together. So that's bringing us into alignment, and we start rowing in the same direction. It's highly customized. So as I said, you can't copy and paste your success from anywhere else. You're going to have to custom create solutions to your challenges and addressing your opportunities. And then when you're mapping, when you're doing this creative, hands-on work to create a map, everything that we learn sticks. It sticks because we're learning by doing. And all of this is remote friendly. All these techniques were kind of matured and created in many cases during the pandemic. So they're all remote friendly. They work whether one or everybody is remote. So this is what I call flow engineering. So the practice of this collaborative mapping activity is all done for the purpose of improving flow, improving the flow of work so that we can improve the delivery of value to customers, whether those customers are internal or external or partners. It really doesn't matter. So flow engineering looks like a sequence of collaborative mapping techniques. And we start from defining a clear outcome to understand where we're headed together and all have the same view of where we're headed. Then we look at the value stream as the way that we're working right now, the current state. And we can imagine ideal states and future states as part of that stage. Then we look at dependencies. What are the things that are affecting us from the outside, affecting the flow specifically from outside? And then capabilities as ways of evaluating and assessing what could be holding us back from inside. What are the things that we're going to need to level up? Do we have all the capabilities that we need to break dependencies, to improve flow? And it goes beyond this. There are more maps that we can include, but in the time that we have, these are the 4 that we're going to cover. So first of all, mapping outcomes. We're beginning with the end in mind, right? It always pays to step back and reassess where are we headed and how do we expect to get there. So this is exactly what mapping outcomes is all about. We start from a target outcome, but immediately after, we evaluate why is that outcome important. So in this case, we need to go twice as fast. We need to make sure that quality doesn't dissolve. But why is that valuable? Why is it valuable to us? Why is it valuable to the company? Why is it valuable to our customers? And what obstacles could get in the way of that? So before we set off in the direction of trying to accomplish our outcome, we're going to look at what are the things that we could step on along the way or trip over as we head in that direction. Then we look at investigations as ways of understanding more about our obstacles and our outcome. How could we best accomplish the outcome? How can we best move towards it? How can we avoid the obstacles on the way? And measures are going to show us how we're going to make progress, how we expect to make progress along that path. So that brings us to mapping value streams. So if we want to improve, if we want to work twice as fast, if we want to deliver value twice as often, then we're going to have to look at how we work today. We're going to have to measure our current state and understand what is happening, where are our bottlenecks, what are our constraints, and how we can improve the flow of work throughout the value stream. So what we're going to do is take a look at mapping the value stream. So when we create this map, we're laying out each activity in the process from start to finish, and we can frame this in the context of our specific team or in the broader organization. We can zoom this out to an entire release, or we can zoom it into a sprint. It really doesn't matter. It depends on your area of influence and what you're going to aim to accomplish. So in this case, we're looking at a pretty narrow scope just for the purposes of illustration, but you can see here that we're able to add measurement to this. So this is the magic of value stream mapping, is that we add measurement to the process. And so we're able to see how long each activity is taking and how much time is spent waiting between those activities. And that's going to give us an understanding of where we should be focusing. We're going to focus on the constraints, on the hotspots. Where are we taking most of the time? And we can use different layers for this, different lenses, different dimensions. We could be measuring quality, if quality was our desired outcome. If improving value delivery was our target outcome, we could look at value. How much value are we adding in each activity? There's a number of different ways that we can use a value stream map to understand more about the way that we're working. We can illustrate roles and find out, if we were to add someone to the team, where would we be putting them? Where would we be best served by adding capacity? Or if we have to lose someone from the team, let's say, someone's going on vacation or somebody is moving to another role, how are we going to cover all the activities, all the capabilities that we need to deliver value? We can use a value stream map to figure that out as well. So here's another example. It's a little bit more detailed. This is a more realistic example. You can see the same features kind of represented here. We've got hotspots identifying where most of the time or complexity is located. We're also able to highlight where rework is happening, where are we throwing back work that's either not up to specifications or not up to our level of quality, not satisfying requirements. We're able to see what roles are present across the value stream, so we can see where people may be overloaded or where we might be able to streamline things because we have two activities back to back that are handled by the same person, or maybe they're handled by different people so they can be run in parallel. There's all kinds of information hidden in a value stream map, and the data is really what's going to surface those insights. So that's going to bring us to mapping dependencies. So back to our real life example, we highlighted a hotspot in environment setup. So we've got a focal point. We could be looking across the value stream at very different places, but we're going to pick the highest priority, highest value opportunity here. And environment setup was a major portion of the total lead time in the value stream. So we're going to start there. And when we start looking at dependencies, environment setup is pointing us towards infrastructure, which is not handled by our team. So no wonder we wait a long time for it to happen, and it's slowing down our progress. So knowing that, examining how all this fits together, what factors are affecting our bottleneck, we can go and do a little investigating. So we go investigate infrastructure, we go and talk to Ludo, and Ludo's our director of infrastructure. He's responsible for all the environment management, all the testing environments, production, staging, everything. And so you can imagine he's always swamped. He's always being distracted. He's always being pulled in different directions. He's got a giant backlog to deal with. And so he has to kind of ignore everything that comes across his desk, or else he'd be completely burnt out. So we can sort of dig into this a little and try and understand how can we help out Ludo so Ludo can help us out, right? We want to find a way to address some of Ludo's concerns so that we can speed up the environment management process and speed up our value delivery. So if we're looking at where we are at the moment, the business needs to go faster. We need to go faster. Ludo needs to go faster. Ludo cannot go faster because he's currently overloaded, and complaining about it isn't going to solve the problem. So what can we actually do? As I mentioned before, we can draw out a value stream map at any zoom level. So we can be zoomed way out to a release. We can zoom way out to the organization. We can also zoom in. So if we zoom into environment setup, what we're able to do is identify a few different areas that, if addressed, if we were to implement some simple automation, if we were to eliminate some waste, if we spend a little bit of time trying to improve the constraints in that section of the value stream, will address the constraint at our level, which will speed up our value delivery, right? So what we're able to do is, through a few specific interventions, improve our total time and address that constraint. So we're getting most of the way to our objective of twice as fast by making 3 simple fixes and what amounts to 1 day of pairing between my team and Ludo's team. So we're helping them out by reducing the work that it takes to provision environments. I'm able to lend Ludo's team some of my developer expertise. And as a result, we all go faster. And not only my team, but every product team is able to benefit from these results. So that's a big payoff for little investment. But if we want to go further than that, that's where capabilities come in. So let's say we want to address what is tying us to Ludo's team. Let's say we want to decouple that dependency or alleviate that dependency to a much higher degree. Maybe we want to take it on inside of our team so we don't even have to rely on Ludo's team to deliver any kind of infrastructure management for our purposes, or maybe a majority of our purposes. So what we're able to do with capability mapping is address dependencies by looking at what capabilities are being provided by those dependencies, and perhaps, if it's possible, internalizing those capabilities into our teams. But at the very least, we can understand more about them. And so what that looks like is identifying key capabilities that are tied to, again, our primary bottleneck. We're not looking at every capability. We're not looking at every dependency. We're only looking at the ones that matter the most, the ones that are specifically tied to what is slowing us down, where our constraint is, where our hotspot is. So we're able to look at each one of these key capabilities. This is a small sample, but again, we don't want to look at every capability, just the ones that will make the most difference. So we're able to see, for each capability, who owns that, and also importantly, who's a backup for that person? Who's going to be supporting that person if they want to go on vacation, or they get pulled away for some task, or maybe moved on to another team, or they're sick, or any number of things that happen. We don't want to be stuck in a situation where the one person who knows how to do something isn't available, right? So being able to highlight where we have backups, where we don't, is really valuable. Then we want to look at what's our internal skill level for this capability. Are we able to actually do it? Do we have the training? Do we have an understanding? Do we have support resources? Do we have things like documentation or access to APIs? Have we created a playbook for accomplishing this task on a regular basis? All these are really important to understand, are we ready to take on this capability? Is this something that we should be internalizing into our team? And for what scenarios, right? It might be a case where 80% of the time we can handle it, and then 20% of the time we send it back to the infrastructure team. But that means 80% of the time we're moving much faster. And that's really valuable. So by looking across all these dimensions of capability, we're able to assign a score to each capability and create a stronger understanding of what are we able to do to address our constraints, our dependencies, and improve our workflow by moving at top speed. We're always going to move fastest if we're doing things inside of our team that we're fully capable of delivering. So understanding what that looks like, understanding what it's going to take to get there is really important. So a capability map helps us produce this visible asset that we can take to other groups. We could take this to leadership and ask to either hire for a position, maybe bring on a trainer or a consultant to help us out. But we're able to make a really strong case by using all of these maps to paint a picture, to really clearly demonstrate, here's the value in addressing this specific constraint, and here's how we propose to do it. And that is something that I haven't seen anywhere else. That's what flow engineering is all about. So what this allows us to do is really provide a path or assist along the way this migration from Ludo's team being completely overrun and just fighting fires constantly to moving towards something like a platform team, right? We're able to apply the same techniques, the same mapping process and flow to Ludo's team that we run in the application development teams and the product teams. And Ludo's team can now move further towards becoming a platform team by adopting these same techniques. This desired outcome of improving agility and removing all of that firefighting, we can run through what does the value stream look like for Ludo's team? What does the value stream look like for the product teams? How do we balance the two so that we arrive at a platform as a service model, more self-service, more agile operations inside of each product team without overburdening anybody, without taking on extra work, and perhaps making things a lot easier and definitely faster. So how are we able to make any of the time that it's going to take to do this, right? This takes time. It doesn't happen for free. So in the case of Ludo's team, the way that they're able to make time is by doing a little bit of forensic analysis, looking at what is taking up most of the time in the team. What are the things they're constantly battling with repeatedly? What are the things that will make a big difference with a little bit of effort or investment? And what often happens is that once you map your value stream, you find that 20% of the value stream is easily addressable waste. We can just stop doing a few things, do some things in parallel, implement some simple automation, use something like a ticket system instead of email, Slack message instead of a ticketing system. There's all kinds of different ways that we can tackle things once we see how they're going to affect the flow. So, of course, there's any number of things that we can do. By having the mapped value stream and that one specific target, we're able to target our efforts and focus our efforts on what's actually going to make a difference, which means we can make time for it knowing that it's going to pay off. And we know how much time to spend on it. We know what it's worth. And it's especially valuable when we're working on something that is a common dependency across multiple product teams. It's very clear what the ROI for that scenario is going to be. So what's going to happen is we're going to work with Ludo's team to clarify goals. The goals are common goals, are individual team goals, see where they align, see where we can invest and address constraints that are going to help everybody. And then we're able to move through this simple process together to make a very strong case for where we should focus, whether or not we need outside investment or help, and how we're actually going to make a difference. And then the effect of this is that Ludo's team speeds up, my team speeds up, the organization speeds up, and we get to that twice as fast target. So what happens when we really invest in this, and this is a specific case example, what happens when we start moving towards a platform team, when we start focusing on common bottlenecks and dependencies, is that we get a lot more return on investment. We get a lot more done when we focus. We're able to reduce not only failures, but the time it takes to do anything. And what's going to happen when we do that, when we invest in platform solutions, when we invest in dependency mitigation, is that we're able to move that much faster, but we're also speeding up things like feedback and time to recovery and all those other positive changes that we like to see in the DevOps world. So to kind of wrap us up here and give you a high-level overview, flow engineering gives you a path from not knowing exactly where to focus, maybe having a bunch of pains and goals and ideas and questions, to a single clarified focal point. Maybe something to balance that out. Maybe you have a first priority and a second priority, but we go from everything that we could possibly do to something extremely valuable and clear. And then we look at how we're actually going to make that happen. We look at current workflow. We're able to not only look at a current state value stream map, but we can create an ideal state map. What would this look like if we could do anything? And a future state value stream map, what's it going to look like in 3 to 6 months? So we can start to sort of prototype different solutions, imagine what we're capable of. And then we can understand more about what's holding us back and more about our connection to the broader organization by mapping dependencies. And we do that by following the constraint, following the bottleneck. That one hotspot or those few hotspots that are really making a difference, we can focus on those and not have to map everything, right? This is a very lean process. We're only ever focused on, first, our target outcome, the constraints that are affecting our target outcome, the dependencies that are impacting those constraints, and then the capabilities that are going to address those dependencies. And through that combination, we're able to generate a number of ideas, a number of insights, a number of hypotheses on what's really going to make a difference, what's going to make the most difference. And we can form those into what I call a flow roadmap. And a flow roadmap is a little bit different than your product roadmap and your technical roadmap because it's talking about your workflow. It's talking about how you work, how you get things done. And so it's the only roadmap that's really about the system of work, about your processes, about your value streams. And so you're able to create a roadmap that not only identifies deliverables that are going to improve your outcome or move you towards your outcome, you're able to identify measurements for those specific deliverables. So how are we going to know that we're making progress towards those deliverables, that outcome? And then you decide what methods you're going to use. So once you've got your deliverables, your metrics for measuring progress, then you decide what's going to make progress the fastest, the most effectively. That's going to leverage our specific capabilities and understanding our constraints and what's currently slowing us down. So that combination takes you from we don't really know where we should focus or we don't really know what's going on, all the way to we know what to do tomorrow. We know how to measure the performance of that action. We know what to expect from it. And we know how we're going to accomplish it. So we go from foggy to absolute clarity, everybody being on the same page, everything being ready to go, where everybody can contribute and understand this is the most important thing. We're all focused on it. And once we solve it, we're going to move on to the next thing. And all of that happens with very quick, very effective, very clear collaborative meetings. So each one of these workshops, each of the maps is created in 2 to 3 hours. We can do them ideally synchronously, but this can all be done asynchronously as well. We can create these maps based on surveys, if people say that they have no time and they can't get together. But obviously we get the best results when we all come together and get them done. But luckily that doesn't take a lot of time, and the return on investment is humongous. So if you'd like to know more about that, if you're curious, you can go to flow.visible.is and download my ebook. That's going to take you from start to finish through this process with a lot more detail. It's going to take you through the flow roadmap. It's going to take you through a few other options and ideas. When you sign up there, you're going to get my 7-day flow engineering course. It's going to walk you through all the material day by day. So every single day you'll get a little piece. You won't even have to read the ebook. You'll also get access to templates and everything you need to get started on your own. And I want to also invite you to inside-out.work, which is going to be chronicling mine and my co-author Andrew Davis's path towards publishing a book on flow engineering that's coming out next year. So we're working with IT Revolution to get that published. And in the meantime, every 2 weeks, we're going to be putting out an issue of the newsletter that's talking about flow engineering, talking about culture, talking about change, transformation, continuous improvement, collaboration, everything that it takes to succeed and deliver value in 2021 and beyond. So I hope you enjoy all of that, and I'd love to talk to you about it. If you're interested, you can reach out to me through the website, through either website, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sarah Mazer. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer and Enterprise Architect at Lunch Darkly, and I support our federal customers. I've been working with the federal government for over a decade. My background is in computer engineering, and I've done everything from chip design to system design to being part of a working group developing ontologies for clinical trials. And I've also been a contributor to a NIST publication. So I've had the ability to really blend my technical skills with my teamwork skills. And I've noticed how federal agencies managed and struggled through COVID times. And I thought I'd give a presentation about it today because I'm very impressed that teams under enormous pressure actually rose to the occasion and became more productive. So how did they do that? Well, first, let me set the stage. What we saw in early COVID days, especially as it relates to health and human services, was a redirection of resources and funding to critical population health programs. And federal DevOps teams who've been competing with the private sector for resources for many years were already stretched thin, and they had to step up under enormous pressure. DevOps teams quickly became more resource challenged and functioned in a keep the lights on only mode. Some team members had to rapidly shift to working at home and had those work from home challenges that many of us faced, such as having young children in the mix. Some people got sick, and some team members just started having morale issues. I'm sure that this all sounds familiar, but unlike in the private sector, DevOps teams in the federal space found themselves with additional challenges and more work. And for example, federal buildings and parks were closing, and there was a need to notify the public and continually keep them up to date. That created a need for real-time changes to websites and algorithms that are used to determine whether people can purchase permits online, are eligible for certain programs, and required a lot of extra work. And what do these high-level business issues really have to do with DevOps processes and feature management? Well, let me first start by explaining what feature management is. At a high level, feature management is simply the ability to separate deployments from releases. And that enables significant benefits to federal agencies. Smaller incremental changes actually means that you can develop faster with less risk. Before I proceed with this presentation, let me go over a few terms. A feature management platform uses feature flags. Feature flags are just decision points in code whose behavior can change during runtime. And they're typically implemented by wrapping a feature inside a normal if statement or a case statement. And then based on the metadata you provide, the feature will either be shown or not shown. So the metadata is what we use to target individuals or teams or larger segments of the population. To connect your features in your application with the SaaS feature management dashboard, you use an SDK of your choice. And as I'm defining terms, let me mention one more, DORA, which stands for the DevOps Research and Assessment Program. They've been studying DevOps for 7 years and interviewed over 32,000 individuals. Their latest 2021 report was recently published, and I'll reference that quite a few times in this presentation. Feature management fundamentally transforms software delivery because it supports modern DevOps processes like CI/CD and progressive delivery. Feature management democratizes the ability to turn a feature on or off for any segment of users across any app. All teams are empowered to understand the value of their new features faster. And teams can schedule and even automate multi-step release workflows that promotes a fast, safe, and consistent feature rollouts at scale. And development is accelerated with less risk. Let me give you an example of what that means. Imagine your dev team worked really hard on a fancier website than this. It was a really critical release that implemented a lot of federally mandated changes to policies due to COVID. And let's say there were 10 really important features and a few bug fixes thrown in. And those changes are probably going to cause a lot of confusion in the public. So you expect to have a lot of people requesting help using a chatbot and other means. So you add a few improvements to the chatbot in this release as well. And your team tested it well in staging, and everybody was so confident in this release, you even released on a Friday afternoon. But as you were getting ready to enjoy your weekend, someone slacks you and says, I think there's a problem. That one new CSR chatbot improvement isn't syncing with the CSR case management queue anymore. The public is stuck in limbo waiting for someone that just never shows up. So if you're a federal agency or not, this could have major real-world implications. Could this make the news? Could ill people not get the help they need in a timely fashion? Could that whistleblower or intelligence tip not come in? And prior to feature management, most orgs would perform a rollback to an earlier working release. But then you would also lose those 10 other new features, those bug fixes, until that issue is resolved. However, with feature management, each feature is isolated so that you could go to a dashboard and just toggle off that one broken feature. You just bring up the dashboard, search for the feature, and toggle it off. All of your other features and bug fixes remain. Now that's a simple kill switch example, but it shows you the power of being able to immediately reduce risk to an agency. And if this happened in the middle of the night, you can just turn it off. I can't emphasize enough the importance of taking that anxiety and stress off developers when they're forced to deal with middle of the night pages, trying to fix something while sleep deprived and ending up breaking more things while trying to fix an issue. How many of you have seen things actually get worse after trying to fix that one little thing that was broken? I'm not here to advocate moving slower, but rather have you think about what is needed to move quickly in a safer way. You need to provide more value faster, but you need to do this without sacrificing the quality of your employees or your health. The missing piece in this is making sure that you have the systems and processes in place to support this way of working, such as using feature management. There's also operational use cases for feature management that really come in handy. Imagine you're very stressed out and you have an incident and you don't know how to fix it. What you might do is go to the logs, but unfortunately, you don't have enough information. The application's been running as is, and it has a very minimal logging level. What you might do is redeploy the application and change the logging levels so you have additional information in the log files that will help you debug the situation. If you're using feature management, though, you can actually change the logging level on the fly in real time. So let me give you an example. Here's a website that I'm running. So it's an application, and on the left-hand side of my screen, you see a feature of set logging level that has been configured. Underneath, I just have a sample output of the application. Now I'm going to go and refresh my application so that you do see that the logs are updated to the terminal. And then when there's an incident, I would go up and set the logging level to something different, say debug, save it, and then let me refresh the application. Down below, you do see that there's been additional debug information that's sent out. Not only do you improve your team's morale and reduce stress, in DORA terms, your teams are becoming more productive. And usually your release frequency and time from commit to deploy is faster. So let's take a look at one case study in more detail. We'll talk about the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. One of my current roles is to support development teams at CMS to ensure that the Office of Communications programs are running without issue. These are many of the public-facing websites, including healthcare.gov and medicare.gov. There are many separate development teams with different system integrators that own pages under those domains or components within the pages. All of those teams have a variety of DevOps processes, tools, deployment schedules, and so forth. But typically, CMS schedules development around major initiatives, such as the release of the new Medicare plans each year, or around healthcare.gov's open enrollment. Now, with COVID, each team was impacted in a variety of ways, much like we all were. Unfortunately, for the public sector, you can't just delay a release of a product. You're mandated by law to go live on certain dates. Then, due to COVID, changes to eligibility occurred. So first, due to executive order, open enrollment 2020 was extended. It's actually just extended this year as well, I found out recently. Additionally, later in 2021, open enrollment was reopened for a period of time called SEP, or Special Enrollment Period. And what that meant for development teams that were already having to do the same amount of work with less people, now they actually had to do more work with less resources. To change eligibility dates for the public isn't as simple as just keeping a website on longer, obviously. There are modifications to what you can see when you log in, many calculations happening under the hood around eligibility that needed to be updated, complex determinations of what to show individuals and when. Essentially, CMS needed to quickly turn new executive policy into code again and again because of all of these COVID-related changes to policies and dates changing. And during major events, such as open enrollment, code to the website is typically frozen. Any new changes go through significant scrutiny and are only performed when absolutely necessary. So we're at teams do the same amount of work with less resources, teams do more work with less resources, and now we have a third issue, less time. Because eligibility periods are extended, the times that developers have to make changes or upgrade the infrastructure is reduced. In fact, there was only a few months between last year's open enrollment and the SEP period, and then this year's open enrollment. And that makes it incredibly difficult to get everything that they wanted to get done finished in time. And now with open enrollment 2021 being extended, that may impact another project I'm working on, which is to transition CMS from using a private instance to a FedRAMP instance of feature management. And we can't do that switchover and testing until open enrollment is complete. And so how did the development teams at CMS manage to do more with less resources in a shorter amount of time? They used feature management. Almost every team within the Office of Communication uses feature management to extend the eligibility dates for their particular project. For each component that has required a change to a date or an eligibility calculation or extension, that feature is wrapped in some code. Here's what that might look like. A federal DevOps team would use an SDK of their language of choice. In this case, I'll use Python. Inside the code, they first specify the environment they want to control. They can and do test in production. So yeah, let's say this is a prod key here. When you have the ability to literally test in production, yet not release features to the public, you can find more bugs that simulated environments wouldn't catch. It even saves them money because they don't need all the dev, test, QA, staging, pre-prod environments anymore. And for the sake of explaining feature management to the masses today, I'm showing a server-side example, which is why I'm using Python. With server-side use cases, when you initialize, your application gets everything we know about the current state of your environment from the previous dashboard we saw. The names of features, their evaluation rules, and their current states. Now, not every feature management company treats client-side and server-side connections differently. Since my company works with the government agencies, we feel that it's mandatory to not trust a client. So for client-side applications, we authenticate as a single user and only send back the feature evaluations for that user and not the entire rule sets. Otherwise, you're bound to have some hackers digging into rules, user segments, and even trying to modify codes to see something that they shouldn't. Now, after initialization, the SDK establishes a server-sent, long-lived HTTP connection to receive any additional changes that somebody would make in the dashboard for real-time updating of your application. The next line of code we'll look at is the variation call, where three things are provided: the feature name, the request context, and a fallback value. This fallback value is only used when you can't even initialize. Otherwise, the last known value of the feature is provided until a connection is reestablished. In our case, the request context is a user, but it could be a server, a cluster name, anything you want. I'm keeping this simple with a Boolean true or false. Based on what we know about this person, how it evaluates, we are either going to show or not show this feature. Now, what do we know about people? So every application is different. If you were a commercial company, you might make use of some of the demographic information or even PII, but that's pretty rare with a federal agency to want to store that in a SaaS application. However, that doesn't mean your application can't take advantage of all of this metadata. There's a concept of a private attribute. Because your targeting rules have already been loaded in your application's memory, it can perform the evaluation locally using all of this data, just not have it saved in our SaaS environment. And so you prevent sharing PII externally by declaring your metadata as private attributes. And that gets us past a lot of organization security teams. Now, agencies could selectively target people by location, age, gender, and so forth to have very targeting public messaging. However, in most cases, we're working with anonymous users. Ideally, the feature management solution or some other integrated solution generates some random unique identifier, so we can at least support things like canary rollouts if we can't target people by anything else. That way, we can still slowly ramp up who sees new features while making sure the underlying infrastructure can support any additional load to the system our new feature might cause. But back to testing and production. We want our QA team to see features before the public, so we can add their names, make a QA segment, or target anyone with an agency email address. So when CMS rolled out the new 2021 Medicare plans to the public during COVID times, they went to the dashboard and flipped the flag by flag, enabling all the new plans, and the entire rollout lasted 7 minutes. It was flawless because they had already been testing in production. In a similar manner, flags are flipped to enable open enrollment eligibility algorithms, extend open enrollment, or enable those special enrollment periods. They could have even saved those 7 minutes by scheduling features to go live automatically. But I know the team wanted to flip flags live and test during the rollout as a team. Let's take a look at another case study, recreation.gov, or for short, I'll call it rec.gov. For the public, rec.gov is a one-stop source for travel ideas, trip planning, camping tour, permit reservations, and park passes at our nation's federal lands. For the government, rec.gov is a tool that can provide management solutions for public recreation locations. And the beautiful rec.gov website supports 3.9 million reservations, 4.2 million transactions, and over 200,000 mobile app downloads, and has 20 million annual users. The rec.gov website is managed by Booz Allen Hamilton, who works with the 12 federal agencies affiliated with the website. And Booz Allen started with an internal feature management solution, and the team was already releasing frequently at a velocity of over 10 times a day. But their deployments were coupled with releases, inflexible, and more cumbersome than necessary. Big events, such as the opening of registrations for popular parks like Yosemite and Zion, proved particularly challenging. Updates could not be made quickly enough. And as the most popular campsites book in just minutes, the team really needed real-time control of their features. In addition to adopting a number of modern technologies supporting e-commerce, DevSecOps best practices, and a microservices model to support the reinvented experience of rec.gov, Booz Allen determined that moving to a SaaS feature management platform would really enable the necessary real-time control of the code base and provide a new level of release confidence. If you happen to visit rec.gov during COVID, you would have seen large COVID banners across the page with public updates, or you may have seen your favorite campsites close and then open. Feature flags provided the ability to react to changes in COVID messaging and algorithms, which support or prevent transactions on the website. The progression of COVID-19 made reacting in real time and having total control over releases more important than ever before. Booz Allen worked closely with the business teams to make it easy for each team to independently create and publish announcements without any help from the developers. Business owners could just go right to the dashboard and toggle messages on or off themselves. Even aside from COVID, the nature of inventory on rec.gov makes it so that there are really large releases once or twice a month, sometimes even once or twice a year, And feature flags are really the only way the team can protect themselves and ensure positive customer experiences. Booz Allen uses trunk-based development to build rec.gov, feature flagging the majority of their features. And that helps keep each service's trunk branches as clean and tidy as possible. Having a single repo waiting for sign-offs on all the different COVID messaging across all the inventories would have frozen development for weeks. With feature management, even the newest features can now be tested in production, validated as needed, and quickly rolled out across the platform. So developers don't have to deal with the friction of long branches and complicated merges. They're closer to CI/CD and trunk-based development. In all key aspects of DORA metrics, they are more productive. Program managers can enable new features when they are ready to go live without waiting for other stalled features that would delay their schedule. And non-technical people can make changes themselves without taking time away from the developers. Agencies reduce risk with kill switches, which enable teams to react quickly to incidents without impacting other critical features. Kill switches give developers time to fix things correctly without possibly doing more damage when sleep deprived. Using feature management, agencies can be more nimble in times of COVID, doing more with less resources. If you want to learn more about how these two development teams use feature management, I invite you to listen to the webinar I moderated with developers from these two federal teams, so you can hear from them directly. Here is the link, but it's just as easy to search for Launch Darkly DevSecOps webinar. And I've also included a link to DORA, which contains a downloadable version of the latest 2021 study. So the 5 takeaways I will leave you with are: separating deployments from releases eases the burden on developers. Feature management is critical for agencies that need to move quickly to enable new policies. Kill switches reduce risk to a government agency. Testing and production is a good thing, so go ahead and release on a Friday. Thank you.